Today I want to talk to you about this ongoing dialogue of conversations I've had recently, and today in specific, I've had essentially the same conversation like 3 or 4 different times with 3 or 4 different individuals, one of whom I hold very close and near dear to my heart, and his name's Ruiz. So if you're watching this, just know how special you are, buddy. The underlying kind of premise of this conversation has been really the same, and what it's about is about this change in perspective of how people are approaching both life and work. And because I've had this conversation so many times recently, and specifically so many times today, what it's telling me is that the message that I'm trying to put out there is starting to resonate. Some people, I believe, are a little bit too afraid to kind of break the mold of this like hustle culture mentality, this like for men, this distorted view of what masculinity looks like in reference to how you take care of yourself personally and how you show up professionally. And we've been told all these lies over the course of time, and the lies are things like, the harder it is that you work, the bigger of a man you are, or the harder that you are as a man, the bigger of a man you show up as, is like kind of what your identity should be. And this change in this culture is kind of honestly even more than twofold. On a personal note, men don't need to be these super duper manly men to be able to show up as the right person in their lives. We can be vulnerable. We can show emotion. We can talk about emotions. We can feel emotions. That's okay. We can take care of ourselves. We can meditate. We can work out without it being this big giant testosterone boom to see out the biggest muscles we can possibly get. We can take care of ourselves by eating the right things that are going to make us healthier, doing things like practicing gratitude and stuff like that, and showing up as real men would. We can show up for our children the way that our generation's fathers didn't show up for their children, and we can change that. We can kind of break that cycle, and then it's on the professional level. The gauge of how well you're doing your job doesn't depend on you working 90 hours a week to get it done. I actually truly believe that there's a lot to do with how we're showing up on a daily basis for our jobs, which then bleeds over and requires us to work long hours. And most of it, I believe, is related to how we're taking care of ourselves mentally and how we're taking care of ourselves physically. Because if you show up to work feeling like and you don't understand how to properly manage your time and how to properly be productive throughout the day, then you might need to work 80-90 hours a week to get done what someone who understands the importance of how they're showing up physically, mentally, and how they're managing and spending their time to where they're super uber productive during the times they do work. You can have 2 people doing the same workload, one of them working 30 hours a week and one of them working 60, and the only real difference is how they take care of themselves, how they show up, and how they manage their time. And so I continue to push the message that this culture change is coming. This culture change is happening. People are talking to me about it. They're thanking me for continuing to push forward with this message that as we look at ourselves as whole people, and as we start to demand that our businesses let us show up as whole humans, and as we start to take control of all these different parts of our lives and really try to show up correctly, there are going to be companies that are going to be ready to take those people on, and they're going to be wanting to bring those people in and giving them an avenue to be successful. And then there's going to be the hustle culture guys. And look, there's still going to be hustle guys show up, hustle gals. There's still going to be those people that want to work all those hours, and that's cool. There'll be a place for them. But a place for the others that want to have a real quality of life and a real quality of work, a work-life balance, and a business that wants to help you grow as both a person and a professional, there's going to be a whole lot of companies that are out there that are starting to recognize this, and those are going to be the ones that are getting the talent. So get on board or watch the train go by.